So, welcome to you for this panel about creating a partnership, collaborating, and hiring in Africa. We will make a little French presentation with Emmanuel. Alors Emmanuel, du coup, qu'est-ce que tu pourrais nous dire pour introduire un peu ce sujet sur créer des partenariats, collaborer et engager en Afrique?
Que, à ma connaissance, il n'y en a pas beaucoup qui sont engagés aujourd'hui. Simplement parce que aussi le continent africain a démarré sa vie dans l'industrie du jeu vidéo, mine de rien, assez récemment, mais il l'a démarré très vite et très fort. Et que je pense que ce serait super intéressant d'engager justement des partenariats. Et merci infiniment aux organisateurs d'avoir choisi ce thème du jeu vidéo en Afrique, parce que justement, c'est quelque chose qui n'a pas été traité ou qui est très peu traité jusqu'à présent et qui me semble être quelque chose de tout à fait pertinent. Le jeu vidéo en Afrique et le jeu vidéo africain est quelque chose de tout à fait différent et qui revendique un certain nombre de racines, etc., etc. Et sans doute une organisation, alors pour le coup que je ne connais pas et que j'aimerais bien connaître un petit peu mieux, une organisation sans doute un petit peu différente de la production, ne serait-ce que parce que les infrastructures sont aussi différentes. Je sais que l'Afrique est beaucoup plus aujourd'hui mobile, enfin orientée sur des réseaux mobiles que sur des réseaux filaires, par exemple. Donc voilà, je pense qu'il y a beaucoup de choses à faire à tout point de vue, qu'il y a des artistes de très grande qualité sur le continent africain, que ce soit en Afrique du Nord, en Afrique noire, subsaharienne, etc., etc. J'ai vu beaucoup de choses qui ont été réalisées par des jeunes studios africains. Donc je pense qu'il y a des synergies et des complémentarités et une créativité à échanger entre nos différents studios européens et africains.
Eh ben d'accord. Eh ben parfait comme introduction. C'est vrai on avait retrouvé ces thématiques ce matin sur État des lieux, où justement on parlait un peu de ça, de cette de cette différence, que ce soit en termes de travail, que ce soit en termes aussi de coûts de production, que ce soit aussi en termes de culture et d'orientation. Et puis aussi, on avait vu que les initiatives sont très locales pour le moment parce qu'il n'y a pas de politique globale. Et puis du coup, Yves Le Yank de chez Ubisoft nous a dit qu'effectivement, il y a des pays dans lesquels c'est très développé, comme l'Afrique du Sud, mais Julien disait que c'était un cas justement qui était très à part et que c'est Evelia qui disait que l'Afrique du Sud était un continent dans le continent parce que c'est tellement particulier que du coup en Afrique du Sud bah, il y a beaucoup d'investissements, il y a des écoles, il commence à y avoir des structures qui sont là pour le jeu vidéo. Et effectivement, ça peut être une première piste. On parlait aussi du Kenya ce matin avec apparemment Rubica qui s'installe au Kenya et qui du coup permet de créer des filières de formation en Afrique qui pourraient aboutir sur des des potentiels créatifs du jeu vidéo qui pourraient être amenés à travailler dans les plus grands studios ou aider au développement du jeu vidéo en Afrique, parce qu'il y a ce marché local, comme tu disais, qui est très fort avec les plateformes mobiles. Et puis il y a aussi cette envie de faire du jeu vidéo pour le continent africain. Puis après, comme le disait aussi Yves ce matin, de ne pas oublier la dimension internationale. Et effectivement, l'arrivée de ces écoles, ça peut permettre aux jeux vidéo de fonctionner à la fois en local pour un public très ciblé, mais aussi d'aller commencer à titiller le marché international sur des grosses productions, ou en tout cas d'aider des gros studios sur des productions, sur des assets, enfin voilà, quoi, plein de choses comme ça. Et bah très bien.
Parfait, je vous laisse continuer en anglais.
Yes, of course.
Cool, let's go.
Merci beaucoup. So thank you, Emmanuel. Now we'll follow with English with the English presentation. So maybe all of the speakers can introduce themselves. We will begin by Julien, and after it will be Luc, and after that it will be James. So Julien, you can begin your presentation.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for having us. It's great to talk about Africa in video games today. It's a great topic indeed. I'm very happy to talk with you guys. My name is Julien Herbin. I'm a former Ubisoft employee. I've been with Ubisoft for 12 years. I have moved with my family to Senegal last year and founded my own studio here. One reason is that I found that there was not enough representation of Africa in video games, and that's one of my mission. And the other one is obviously that West Africa is kind of deserted in terms of game productions, and I think there's a great potential here. We have been operating for about a little more than a year. We are mainly producing mobile games, all set in an African context for now. And we have released 3 games. One is a racing game, another one a football juggling game, and the last one is a game about environment protection called Clean My Beach, where a player has to get rid of garbage on a beach. So as you can see, so far we only do non-violent games, trying to convey some kind of message or a positive vision of Africa. We are 8 people at Kaifo right now. So obviously I'm not African, I'm French, but all my employees are from Senegal. And we are growing more and more ambitious. We have 3 other projects in production right now, and one of them is not targeted to Africa. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it about Kaifo.
Okay. It was good. Thank you for your presentation. So Luc, if you can introduce yourself.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for having me here. My name is Luc Lamothe, and even though I have a French surname, I unfortunately won't be speaking to you in French because I haven't really used French in about 30 years. I grew up in Canada. I've moved to South Africa 21 years ago to start up a game development company. Yeah, just been lucky enough, I think, to see quite a bit of a growth of the South African video game industry, at least, if not the African. So currently, as of 2012, I am the founder and managing director of a studio called 24-Bit Games. We're a technical development studio where we focus mainly on code dev, porting, technical optimizations, that sort of thing. And we're located in Johannesburg. We basically get paid to solve problems and put out fires for other studios. Some of our clients have been Landfall, Annapurna, done some work with Fulbright, Disney, Devolver. So kind of different range, mostly kind of in the indie space. We find a lot of indie studios can really benefit from the kind of services that we do. So we're about 20 or so people now, and that's probably 75% of us are engineers. A bit of production and QA on site as well. And that makes us probably the largest game dev studio in South Africa, game dev related studio at least. Probably the most successful studio would be probably Free Lives. You might have heard of them. They've done Broforce, Gorn, Genital Jousting, Cricket Through the Ages. We've been lucky enough to do a lot of work with them as well, collaborating within South Africa itself. yeah, that's sort of the, I guess, the overview of who I am and what we are and what we do. Is the idea that we'll kind of get on to chatting about more just random African development questions a little bit later after the intro is done.
Okay. Thank you, Luc. And finally, James, if you can introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you for having me here. I'm James Middleton. I'm the director of Balisti Studios in Cape Town. We're a vendor for art and animation. We work for a variety of different international game studios. We work for companies like BioWare, we work for Disney, we work for Jagex as well, where we provide the art and specifically the animation for projects. We've also worked with Luke on a number of projects where he's done the development and engineering work, and we've provided the art assets. We've got 12 people in Cape Town dedicated to art and animation, and we've also actually expanded into Europe, so we have an office in Ireland now as well. And we're part of a larger company called Triggerfish, which is a film and TV animation studio, which is Africa's largest animation studio. We have about 150 people in total. And part of the reason Balisti Studios was formed is we had a lot of staff at Triggerfish, and the main content that Triggerfish produces is children's entertainment. And many of our staff wanted to work in games. So we created Balisti to give them an outlet for their need. That's about it from me.
Thank you very much. I have a first question for you. Did you have, because you have a video game studio, did you have any difficulties recruiting your teams in Africa?
Yeah, we have recruitment for us is probably the #1 focus and the #1 issue for us in Africa. I think we found that for many, and I'll speak more specifically about the art and animation. And art and animation in general isn't maybe seen as a good career choice in Africa. It's something people do, but it's not something that is seen as what's the potential, who can I work for, because it's a relatively small industry compared to Europe. So that you can have careers in art and animation. And I think we are also providing bursaries now, because if we don't, we can't grow as a company and we can't get more staff. And we had to open an office. We opened an office in Ireland, one, because we needed to expand and we could have access to European talent, which we couldn't here. But from our business case and our need as a company, we have to grow the industry. So it's crucial to us that we invest in South Africa and Africa as a whole to build the industry here.
Oh, okay. For example, Julien, did you meet some difficulties to recruit your teams with your studio when you founded Kaifo Games?
Not really, because when I came to live in Senegal last year, I had already had the first experience here and made contacts with the the tech scene in Dakar, and I must say it's pretty small. So I could quite quickly identify people who could who would be wanting to work in the video game industry, and anyway, I cannot expect to find trained people there, because there are no school specialized in video game careers, almost none. So I generally hire young and junior people, and they learn with me. They have a strong technical base generally, or artistical base, and then we work together, you know, to make them grow and specialize in video game production.
Okay, okay. And Luc, for you, did you meet some difficulties to recruit your teams in Africa?
So in South Africa specifically, I think there's a very large, and always kind of has been since I've been here, hobbyist game development community. It's not something like you'd find in Europe, but it's a very dedicated, very specific group of people that's in probably the hundreds. So there's not that much of a difficulty to find, I think, people who are interested and can do game development and have played around making their own small games. For us, though, it's a little bit trickier because we're a highly technical studio. So we need much more, not just kind of game developers, but much more technical programmers and engineers to solve the kind of problems that we deal with. We don't really build so many games as, like I said, we kind of do the heavy lifting technical wise, optimization and porting. So we have to understand various platforms and the hardware differences, that kind of thing. So for us, it's been, it kind of ebbs and flows with our hiring. We've actually just been going through a recruitment drive now for the last, since mid-August, so just about 2 months now, where it's been interviewing candidates every couple of days, looking for some really good engineers. And we've been able to find, I think, 5 or so in the last couple of months for us, of varying degrees between junior, intermediate, and senior level. So it hasn't been easy, but they are around. The education system here is great for engineering and computer science. However, the vast majority of those people go into corporate IT. It's because it can pay a lot more money. It's easier than game development often, and game development still isn't really sort of a known thing. I'm still sort of surprised by the number of people that I'll interview who have said, "Oh, I've always wanted to work in games, always wanted to make games, and we didn't know that that was an option here." So it's still kind of a little bit of a niche thing compared to your standard, working for banks, doing IT, corporate, that kind of stuff.
Okay, I have a question, and we will begin by Julien. Two questions, in fact. The first one will need a short answer, and the second one is we will need a big answer. The first question is, in your opinion, do you replace schools a bit by training your teams yourself? And the second question is, what are the main differences in the organization of work compared to Western studios?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, since there are no school, we're the closest thing to learning how to, make video games.
Yes.
So that would be my short answer. What was the second question again?
What are the main differences in the organization of work compared to Western studios? In your opinion, because
yeah, well, I'm defining the way we work as a studio. So I've been so far I've been applying quite on the book what I've learned at Ubisoft. We use the classical methods to work. We use Scrum. So in the way we are organized, there are not it's not so much different from the West. Now the bigger difference is in the work culture. For instance, the family here will not always understand that a young person wants to join the video game industry and will think that there is no option for them. Yeah,
it's not like, for example, in France, or where you have to, when you want to work in video game industry, you have to choose between your professional life and your personal life. In Africa, it's not an option. That is to say that the personal life will be important and there is no choice for them. That's what you want to say?
What I want to say is that the family might get in the way of people who would like to work in the video game industry, because they think that there is no, future in this industry.
Okay. In this point of view, sorry.
Yeah. That was what I meant. But technically, we use the same tools, we use the same organization than what I used to work with in the past in the Western countries.
Okay. And for you, Luc, what is the what is the main difference in the organization of work compared to what you have known in Canada and what you are used to meet every day in Africa, in the organization of work?
I think from us, it's pretty similar. Nothing really that stands out, I think, as being different here. I think so. Like the developers that come out of South Africa, they're trained very much in the same way that they would be in the rest of the world, and so they're kind of I guess ready to work in the same sort of fashion. And from us, we do, like, all of our work specifically is other than pretty much with, let's say, free lives locally within Africa, it's international clients. So we're dealing with producers who are from European, American studios, and we kind of just adapt our work to be whatever they kind of need. Our days in the office are just kind of normal days, and I pretty much envision them exactly the same as they would be as if we were in a studio somewhere in Western Europe or Canada or America.
Oh, sorry. I have mute my mic. And for you, James, what are the main difference in the organization of work compared to Western studios, new studio in Africa?
For us, because we're a service company, we are basically working the same way that our clients work.
Okay.
So the functions, the processes, the only main difference, the main difference for us is probably time zones when we're working with people who are outside Europe. Most of our clients are North American, but it's pretty much the same. It's the same tools, the same processes. And to answer your other question about education, we work with one particular animation school, and what we found over the years is they were giving very good students, but the students were learning a syllabus that maybe wasn't exactly suited to the roles that we needed. So we've actually had to spend a lot of time working with the educational institutes to for them to learn what's actually needed and what the industry needs. So so for us, it's been something where we do have to collaborate to get new recruits to the point where they need to be, because they don't just come out of college necessarily with the skill sets that we actually need.
Okay. I have another question about your daily life. I'm sure that for you, this is an amazing opportunity to work in Africa. And what would you say to Western developers to encourage them to come to Africa and make games here?
I would say the first thing is come here. Yeah. One of the things that you notice, and I get it less from European associates, but more from maybe North American associates, is people don't understand what the country is like. You can look at the media, you can form an opinion, but it's a country that works. It functions like any other country, and the only way to understand that is if you travel here. And I think it's not just South Africa. Even within Africa, there have been countries that I visited, and I had certain expectations from what I've seen in the media. But when you get there, you find it's not like it appears to be. So I would say the number one thing is get people here. When we find that, especially with most of the large corporates that we've dealt with, that we usually end up sending somebody here at some point. And once we can get them in country, it changes the opinion. They can see the opportunities, they can see the quality of work, the cost benefits, and the skill position. And they go back and say, great, this is going to work for us.
Okay, you almost answered to my next question, but it's not a problem. So, Julien, I'm sure that you say that it was an opportunity for you to come in Africa. And what would you say to Western developers to encourage them to come to Africa and make games with you?
Yeah, it's definitely an opportunity, and also I see an opportunity to develop games in a much cheaper way. I mean, I couldn't create and run a studio with 8 people in France, for instance, and that's an opportunity to make something bigger and maybe develop faster. What I discovered being here is that there is more talented people that I used to think, and I think as you said earlier, come visit and see what's going on, see the quality of the games that are coming out of Africa. It's raising, it's improving year by year, and there is something going on. There is something going on. Also, the being in Africa will help understanding the African market, which is huge. Maybe not in terms of income, but it will grow. It will keep growing. Yeah, look at the demography of Africa, 1.3 billion people. The majority of them is under 20. People are playing. Smartphone is a huge thing. And I see, a bright future for video games, be it usage or production in Africa.
Okay. And at last, for you, Luc, what would you say to Western developers to come in Africa and make games with you?
Yeah, well, I guess we all know that Africa is such a giant place, and it's there's this sort of shared African culture, but every region is very different, and each country has their own culture and their own own beliefs, religions, languages. So it's kind of hard to talk as Africa as a single place. But look, everything that I've seen in my time here is just it's just fantastic with any sort of business, but especially creative businesses like in development. Africa has so much potential, and it can only grow and grow bigger. There's so many stories to tell, and so much of this different culture from different regions. North Africa is totally different than Sub-Saharan Africa. Is different than West Africa, and there's just in terms of getting new ideas and new creativity and new invigoration within the game industry. I think going anywhere else is going to be a subpar compared to what you can, what Africa is going to be bringing to the table in the next 10 years. And to allow for that, obviously, most places within Africa, it's a very cost-effective place to do business, to set up your company in, to salary-wise, cost of living-wise. But at the same time, there's so much first world infrastructure, especially in South Africa with our telecom industry here, the banking industry, internet. It's all top quality stuff, the education system. So everything is here. I think that to circle back onto what James started the conversation with is a lot of the reason why there hasn't maybe been the outside growth in the African industry is mainly because it's people just don't know, and it's especially if you're talking sub-Saharan Africa, it's far away. It's it's a 10-hour flight. Luckily, it's only really an overnight flight if you're coming out of Europe. So sleep at home or sleep on the plane. And next day you wake up and you're in Cape Town or Johannesburg. But I think that there's nothing really stopping it other than just people getting to know that we exist, that we're here, that the capabilities are here, infrastructure is here, and kind of maybe getting over the fear of the unknown.
Okay. And for you, is there a lack of bridges, a connection between Western video game societies, like, for example, Ubisoft or other video game company in Europe or in the United States? Is there a lack of connection between the continents? And do you think that the African continent needs to be protected to keep its identity and its specificities?
For the first parts, I think it kind of follows on from maybe what the answer I gave in the previous question, where it's they're just there's even big companies like Ubisoft, EA, those large companies, they've been spreading a lot, I think, into Eastern Europe and India and to China. And in my opinion, the only next logical step for them is to go south and go into Africa. And I understand that stuff takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. It's big investments. It's a lot of logistics to, say, okay, cool, let's start up a big company in Africa. And when you say Africa, where in Africa? Is it Nigeria? Is it Cape Town? Is it Nairobi? Different places, right? So making those decisions I don't think are easy. But I think there is a disconnect. I think a large part of it is probably also that the actual retail game industry, especially if you're looking at traditional, say, consoles and PCs, is a lot. It's a fraction of what it is in kind of the Western world. That said, the mobile market is huge, like Julien was mentioning. So it is there's just growth year after year when it comes to the mobile industry, and I'm not unfortunately familiar with the numbers on that front, so I'm not sure how well it's monetizing, but just from a numbers point of view, it really is huge. So that opportunity is there, and I think there is probably end up, it's going to be a combination of doing the due diligence, finding a plan that works for them, but also taking some risk, and kind of deciding that, okay, we're going to do this now, looking ahead 20, 30, 40 years from now, and how an investment and how a change of our business practices can pay off in the long run, given the size of a place like Africa. And your second question, what was it again?
It was, do you think that the African continent needs to be protected to keep its identity and its specificities? And in the same way, are you afraid that African video game talents will go and work for Western studios, and so the African continent loses its specificities, its identity?
So the first part of that, I don't think that that's something that's necessary now, because I think we just need to grow. We need to grow and get bigger, and have more of an influence and a say on things. And I think we're too small to worry about being protected at this point in time. I don't think there's anything really that's going to be lost. There's a lack of protection on that front now, personally. For the second part, I've already seen a lot of that. I think in South Africa,
Okay.
probably more so than other places where, a lot of South Africans might have European, British, Portuguese passports based on ancestry, and they have the opportunity to easily go to Europe, work in European studios. Throughout my time here in the last 20 years, I probably know 15 to 20 people who I previously worked with at various companies here, or knew of at another company working on games that are now living in Europe or North America.
Okay.
Working in games.
Okay. And for you, Julien, and after James, of course, you can respond. But maybe Luc have answered the question. Are you afraid that African video game can lose its identity in specificities if a lot of Western company come in Africa and work with African video game talents?
Not really. I think there's room for two kinds of industries in Africa as well as in Europe or anywhere else. You have the bigger companies that would produce bigger games, more aimed at a larger target, more mainstream, I should say, and anyway, there will still always be people who want to talk about something very specific. And it seems that African developers like to talk about the African culture, their heroes, etc., etc. And I think anyway, this current will survive. I think it would be a very good thing that for the industry at large, that bigger players come and invest in the industry here to speed up the development of the gaming industry, to help improving training programs, schools, etc., etc. So I see it as a good thing. Now about whether I'm afraid or not that my employee would leave to to Europe or North America or anywhere else. I'm pretty sure that will happen at some point. We are far from the salaries that people are getting in Europe and in the US, for instance, and we can never compete with that. On the flip side, what we are offering here is a chance for people who want to work on games to stay in their home country or even come back to their home country, do what they like for a living, and stay close to the family. And as you probably know, the family is very important for Africans in general. I don't like to generalize too much because Africa is a big territory, is a big continent, and there are many different cultures and countries in Africa. Not all of them are the same. And for instance, Senegal is, I'm sure, very different than South Africa. But yeah, this is a reality. We will have to, to face it and offer something else.
Yes, that's what we said about South Africa. South Africa is a very particular country in the African continent, and that's what I was saying in French in beginning this talk. It's Evelia that was saying this morning that South Africa is a continent inside the African continent, and it's very particular. I have another thing, but no, for James. The African video game relies a lot on the mobile phone market and is developing expertise, I think, on this type of gaming platform. Do you think that this expertise can be used by people who want to work with Africa?
For me, that's a difficult question because obviously because we are basically servicing the needs of international game studios. Our work is pretty much, I would say, 60% AAA, which is console, and then probably the rest is mobile. I think in terms of companies that are actually making and developing games in South Africa, and that's the only industry I can maybe speak about, is obviously is maybe a bit more.
Yes, sorry. No, sorry. Can follow.
I think the industry is very much based on mobile. Don't know if anybody else in South Africa, at least, is working on console projects. So, I mean, Luke may know if there's another company that work on console projects, but I think it's mostly mobile.
Yeah, there's no one really developing console stuff. There's a lot of PC, like indie-based PC stuff. So PC things coming out of more indie devs, smaller projects, like Free Lives, and then a lot of kind of the mobile stuff mostly that I've seen. Again, this is South Africa, and what I've been exposed to here has been sort of small 1-2 man teams trying their luck on mobile. There hasn't been a whole lot of concerted, proper mobile solutions. There is a relatively newer company called Créer that has set up. They have a lot of overseas investments, and they're getting quite heavily into the African as a whole mobile publishing route, I guess you'd call it. But they got an office in Cape Town and maybe in Nairobi they have one. I'm not sure. But yeah, there's definitely that focus on mobile. If you want to develop games in Africa for an African market, the best way to go is mobile, I think.
Okay. But listening to you, we realize that there are many advantages to work with African video game studio. So why the African continent does not become the new El Dorado for the worldwide video game industry? Because you said it's an advantage in terms of cost to work with Africa. People tends to be more creative maybe, and why the African continent does not become this El Dorado, and why there is not a lot of Western companies that work more with Africa? Because there's a lot of advantage if I listen to you.
Yeah, I think I can start to answer this.
Yes, Julien, you can begin. Yes.
Well, I'm only speaking for West Africa because it might not be relevant for the rest of the continent. But I think firstly because there's probably a misconception of what's going on, the forces in presence here, that people can actually make games in West Africa at all. And since there is maybe only one success story in West Africa for a game, I think people don't realize that we can actually make successful games in West Africa. Then they might think, for good reason, that there is not enough qualified people, skilled people. And of course, we need to start small. We cannot start, putting a lot of money on the table and hiring 200 people anywhere in West Africa. You will not find enough skilled people. But we can start small and grow bigger, identify new people, and then the school programs will follow. And also, I think the governments there are barely encouraging any kind of investment in the industry. there is no tax credit of any kind. There are no public grants, nothing to make it easier to start a business in the video game. It might be very different in South Africa, I don't know, but I think those are probably the main reasons.
Okay. So, Luc, you want to complete the answer maybe about yes?
Yeah,
Yes,
I think I don't have too much more to add that just compared to Julien. I think it's very similar here. I think every point he made about, yeah, we can't just all of a sudden go and boom, hire hundreds of people with a large investment. It's going to take effort to do. It's going to need to grow in stages. And I think it's going to be something that it does require, like I said earlier, it's ultimately going to take some risk. Someone's going to have to say, let's try this. We've done as much homework as we can. We've looked at the numbers, we've looked at the resources, et cetera, and you know what, we're just going to do this. But at the same time, I feel that they have to do it fully, like they have to have both feet in, not just one foot in and one foot out. Otherwise, it'll probably fail. They're going to have to go and say, right, this is a long-term plan, and we have the budget to do this because we're thinking long-term. We're not thinking of within 2 years shipping a AAA product and having it make tens of millions of dollars. But yeah, I think everything Julien said is good. From a government's point of view, yes, the same thing in South Africa for the most part. James can probably comment a little bit more. He's probably had a bit more experience. There are certain vehicles for entertainment and game related tax incentives, but they're complex in South Africa. They're not straightforward. It's not something I think, like say maybe in the Canadian industry in Quebec and in Ontario, they're much more straightforward about getting the rebates there. It's quite difficult in South Africa. But yeah, I think ultimately it's going to come down to somebody who, countries basically getting over their fear of the unknown and doing some research, talking to more local people, getting more exposed to what it's like in various African countries, coming for themselves, and then saying, okay, we've done as much homework as we can. We think we can make this work. Let's try it.
And James, for you, why?
I think I have to agree with what Luc is saying. The government, whilst it does try and support the creative industries, it is limited in the resources that it has. So there is a rebate program, but the practicalities of accessing and using it are somewhat limited. What I would say, though, from how things can grow, obviously, as I mentioned, we have a games art and animation company, but we have a much larger TV and film related company. If I look at the parallel between the two, we started as a very small animation and film company, and we grew very gradually. But we had a turning point about 4 or 5 years ago, where prior to that point, we were making content that was very American or European. It had those sort of qualities to it. Then we started developing projects with African creatives. So we have a show that came out of a writer from Uganda. We had a South African concept artist. Once we'd reached the position in the industry that we could start putting our own ideas in front of international companies, once they could see that there was something new and original, then we grew. So we've actually got a TV show with Netflix now, which is based on African girl superheroes in Uganda. It's set in Uganda. And if the games industry could follow the same path, if it can reach the point where it's mature enough to start to show its own ideas international, and people go, that is unique. We like it. It's different. So that would probably could follow that path. That would be great if those ideas can get onto the international stage and get noticed.
Yeah, it's I think that we will be more than happy here on this stage and in this conference room if we can change a little the perception of Western studios on working more with Africa. And at last, to conclude, is there any meeting to meet African talents, African studios? Maybe do you have some name of meetings to give us to meet African studios and African video game societies, companies?
Yes. So for the past 2 years, at either the last week of November or the first week of December, there's been a conference called Africa Games Week. That's run in conjunction with another conference called Playtopia, which is more of an indie game festival, and that's taken place in Cape Town. And it's been a great success for connecting African, at least South African, and I know there's been quite a few other inter-African developers have come down for it as well. As far as I'm aware, it's again, I'm not really familiar with North Africa. It's definitely from a sub-Saharan African point of view, the largest, if not kind of only large game development kind of meeting conference. And yeah, it was. We've had guests from Ubisoft, from Sony, from Devolver, other large studios have come down to meet, give presentations, talk to local developers, and socialize. It's quite a small, intimate gathering with kind of in the couple of hundreds of people. So it's a nice place to kind of get to meet new people and get to know them and learn new stuff and get the exposure from get African exposure into the rest of the world. Unfortunately, it's like everything else this year. It's not happening. I don't think they're having a virtual event. I haven't heard anything on that front. But hopefully next year it'll be back up and running again.
Okay, and for you, so maybe we have made we'll cover all the meeting about. Is there other meeting? Maybe Julien or James. Do you know other meeting to meet African video game company?
I would say the only other thing I would think of, I mean, obviously not this year, but previously we did a lot of traveling to GDC and XDS. And Luke will probably know more than me, but at previous GDCs, there has been a South African stand, which was funded by the government and the games associations in South Africa, where whilst it wasn't specifically for any one company, a variety of people you could come and meet, and they could arrange meetings with numerous other South African companies. So I don't know if that's going to happen at the next GDC, if there is another GDC that's physical, but certainly there. I think everyone from the industry here is very keen to share with other companies. So if when we travel to international events, in some ways, we can always be a contact point for other companies and other needs within the country.
Okay, and Julien, you want maybe have the last word? And I have a final question that come in my mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now on my side, unfortunately, in West Africa, there's nothing much of an event, a gathering, or anything, because I think the industry is just too young. We cannot. There's no budget. We cannot travel. I would love, to be contributing to that, but nothing really happening right here. Although we do have some opportunity to showcase abroad, like to the Africa corner at the Paris Games Week, and through the Inter Africa program. For instance, this year we were able to be on the virtual India Arena booth. Yeah, I see Evelia is mentioning the Feja in the Ivory Coast. I would say that Feja is not is mostly about esport. There was a small game jam attached to it, but there were practically no professional game developers there. I flew to Ivory Coast, so I saw that, and it was happening in a small room next to the to the biggest part of the event. That was really about it's really about a game competition on FIFA, on Street Fighter and stuff. So I would not qualify it as a a developer gathering.
Okay. I have a last question. Do you think gamers living in Africa want more games produced on the continent? And do you think that African studios can create new needs amongst the players that live in the North Hemisphere? Hello?
Yes, I
Sorry.
think for the first part, yes, I think definitely African consumers crave African content. I think there's been far too little of it for them over the years. I think it's going to probably just be something where, ultimately disposable income throughout Africa is not nearly as much as it is in the Western world. So finding good ways to monetize from a accessibility point of view is difficult. And on top of that, it's also not easy to give access for monetization in a lot of places because, say, obtaining credit cards to have to pay Apple or Google with their accounts for doing things is not really as prevalent or as easy in a lot of places in Africa as it is in the Western world. So there's a lot of hurdles to overcome, but there's a lot of inventive ways that developers here are overcoming those. So it is a solvable problem, I think, but it's something that is still in the process of being solved. Just being able to make sure that as a developer, yes, you want to make African content, but at the same time, it has to be profitable. Otherwise, there's no point. The second part of your question, sorry, what was it again?
Do you think the African studios can create new needs among players living in the Northern Hemisphere? Like at the end of the 80s in France, we had that what we call the French touch. Is there an African touch that can create a new appeal for players living in the Northern Hemisphere?
I think so. I think you probably saw a lot of that sort of with the reaction to Black Panther as a Hollywood blockbuster movie, right?
Yes,
so you can see how popular that was with just the general Western world, let alone people in the Western society who had, say, African heritage, African culture, or came from that background. Just generally speaking, it was fresh and it opened people's eyes to new possibilities and I think was something exciting for them. And I think that is going to come sooner than later from African development studios.
Okay, Julien, do you think that the African studios can create the African touch that all the players all over the world want to play?
Yeah, definitely. I think Africa can bring a fresh vision on art and music. African art and music is famous all around the world, and if we manage to leverage that in video games, I think we will be talking about an African touch, something very unique and special that can practically only be done there. So I'm sure that can and probably will happen in the future. Now, technically, I think also Africa can bring some new innovations to on the tech scene. Like for instance, here only a few portion of the population has a bank account and a credit card, and most of them are using mobile money, so it's a virtual wallet that you have on your phone, connected to your phone carrier, and you can pay practically anything, any bill, anything you buy at the grocery store with it, and it is and will become the main way to charge people in Africa. I bet, and this is something that might be inspiring for the rest of the world, I think. Now, about the question about is African content something that people expect and are craving on? I will also answer yes. It's definitely lacking in the game industry, and not only people, I mean African people or people living in Africa who are connected in some way with Africa. But I think people would like to get a better understanding and probably a better vision of Africa that is often depicted in the media. So I think it's very important that we do try to talk about Africa or Africans in games, even though we don't only do that.
Like James, James talk about Black Panther, and there was a movement about for us by us, and do you think that it's a kind of prude to play video game that have been made on the African continent? Like okay, it's our country, it's our countries, it's our countries, it's our continent, and it's our culture, and we want to play games that have been made by people that understand this culture. That's what.
I think also people want something that obviously that they can identify.
Of course.
But people want something that's unique, that's different. And I believe if I mean, my personal view is you could try and focus and say this has to be an African game. But if it's got to stand on the world stage, it's got to be something that is new, different, and entertaining, rather than just be African. And I think, whilst internationally, obviously, there is a sort of there's a big sort of lot of interest in Afrofuturism as a concept. It's just got to entertain, and that's the number one thing. If the industry can do that, produce content that entertains, regardless of what country it comes from, people will buy it and use it.
Thank you to all of you. Thank you to Julien. Thank you to James. Thank you to Luc. I am very sorry because we are already talking about the topic of the next conference that will be cultural identity between tradition and modernity. And I'm very sorry, but consider that as a great transition, please. And I want to thank you, to thank you, all of you, and to thank you in the audience, because it was very interesting. Sorry, and I think that we will be all happy here if we can change the opinion about African video game industry for the Western studios. So thank you to all of you.
Thank you for having us.
We have maybe a little time if you have question in the audience. No question? Okay. I'm very sorry, my English tend to be bad.
You must have answered everything already.
So thank you, everybody. And we have the next the next talk at 6 p.m. It's about cultural identity between tradition and modernity. There will be Melisandre Monatus that work on Africa Corner, if I remember. Civic Bakayoko that we had this morning for the first conference. Teddy Kosoko, that is an indie game developer. And Lipo Moeti, that I don't know at all. So it will be a great occasion to meet him. So thank you, everybody, and we give you rendezvous here at 6 p.m. Thank you.